one of the first things that Congress did was to try to counteract the steep unemployment that we've had as a result of this recession, almost depression, that we inherited. And the American Reinvestment Act, you see the signs when you drive on the freeway, the so-called stimulus bill, put an enormous amount of money into the public sector financing of energy resources, of roads and buildings, of the ability to have the digitalization of medical information, money to provide for the infrastructure, for the communications and the internet, a lot of money in a lot of different areas, not just immediate jobs, but immediate jobs that are investments for our future. And that bill passed early on, and we had part of it because the COBRA benefits, which allow people to keep their insurance when they lose their job, was out of our committee, as well as assistance to the states to help pay for their Medicaid program, which we call Medi-Cal. But that bill was a far-reaching bill. That bill is a good starting point to illustrate one of the most frustrating parts of this last year. Economists, looking at the depression that we were about to avoid, but a recession we were experiencing, which is the worst since the Great Depression in the 1930s, said that we needed to do something to get jobs to people. And the private sector was not making investments. The banks were not lending. Nothing was happening. In fact, everything was constricting. So economists, whether they were on the right or the left, all said government needed to stimulate the economy with investments. Notwithstanding the fact we have a deficit. But the first thing we had to do was to get the economy moving again. And that bill sought to do that. We could not get a single Republican in the House to vote for that bill. In the Senate, all Republicans except 3 voted against the bill. Now, why would they vote against a bill like this? We had some tax breaks in it, we had some public spending, it was needed. They didn't engage us and say, well, do it this way as opposed to that way, we all think it ought to be done. They just simply said, no. And the 3 Republicans in the Senate were pretty interesting because 2 of them were the only moderate Republicans we have left. The 2 gentleladies senators from the state of Maine. The 3rd Republican was the senator from Pennsylvania, help me, Arlen Specter, who now became a Democrat. And he became a Democrat because a Republican said to him, you walked away from the Republican opposition to all that is being presented by the Obama administration. You are no longer a Republican in our eyes. We're going to defeat you in the Republican primary in 2010. We're going to strip you of your Republican ranking position, and if we get a majority, you won't be chairman of a committee. That's a pretty powerful threat to a Republican member who would like to be somewhat independent. And because of that, he has switched to become a Democrat. So we had on that bill, on the energy bill, on the health bill, and on the other important bill, the reform of our economic system, which are some of the most important reforms since the New Deal days, the Republicans have voted no. Their view is if they can keep President Obama from successes, that will allow them to say politically, the Democrats can't govern. And so we've had the implacable opposition of the Republicans on everything. Now, that doesn't mean the Democrats have been so great. We have a Democratic majority, but we have a broader tent, and we have different views in the Democratic Party. And in the Senate, with the crazy rules by which the Congress is governed, any one of the 60 Democratic senators can stop legislation. So the rules have not only empowered the Republicans to stop things, but any senator who's on a narcissistic trip can say absolutely no. And my former chief of staff for 26 years as President Obama's liaison to the Congress, Phil Shaliro. Very able, wonderful person. He has had to work with those senators, and he has told me over and over again every night how he gets up worrying about Senator so-and-so, or Senator this one, or Senator that one, because it's not rational that they would possibly want to defeat the health care. We've waited so many generations for health care reform. Why would anybody want to defeat this bill? And yet it's quite remarkable that the Democrats in the Senate were able to get 60 votes. Is it the bill that we would all desire? Well, absolutely not. But it is one of the most important historical pieces of legislation upon which we will build a better healthcare system than anybody could have possibly expected. If you look back at Social Security and we look back at Medicare, they weren't perfect when they were adopted, but they accomplished so much. And this healthcare bill will accomplish a great deal as well. It will cover, in the House bill, 36 million Americans, in the Senate bill, 30 million Americans. They will get coverage. If they can't afford the coverage, they will get subsidies to help them buy insurance. If people have pre-existing conditions that has prevented them in the past from getting health insurance, that will be stopped. The insurance companies will not be able to deny people coverage when the whole system is up and running. We will have a mechanism for people to buy their insurance if they're buying an individual policy or a small group policy that their employers may choose to fund. And that the mechanism will be an exchange, and then there will be choices. We wanted one of those choices, and still want one of those choices, to be a publicly run option. It made sense. Conservatives should have been for it because it saved money, because it by virtue of the competitive challenge, it would have brought down the costs of health care. Instead, we will try to make sure there are choices. We will also manage insurance regulations carefully enough so the insurance companies have to spend 85 to 90% of their money on health care benefits and not be able to put more and more money into profits and overhead. We will have other changes as well in the way insurance companies operate. And we hope in this way that we'll have some competition, and with a combination of competition and regulation and the further coverage of the American people, we will, and a lot of other means to hold down costs by experimenting in new ways of delivering care, trying to provide accountability organizations where there be greater coordination of the insurance companies, the hospitals, the doctors, the other healthcare providers, particularly with people with long-term problems, that we can hold down the healthcare costs. There are a lot of details, and some of you may want to ask questions about it when we get to questions and answers. But it's a very good bill, and we hope in this conference to make it better than the Senate bill, because we think the House bill has a number of important features that the Senate bill does not have. I was supposed to be here next week. Congress doesn't go into session until the week after, but I'm going to fly back tomorrow in order to start the negotiations on the final health care bill. The one that was supposed to have been the crowning conclusion of the first year of the Obama administration. It will be the crowning conclusion of the first year in either January, we hope, or maybe February, if must be, and maybe March, but we want it earlier. We have revised the drop-dead deadline many times, but we have to keep moving to achieve those goals. If we accomplish the goal of reforming our financial system, bringing about an energy bill that can achieve those goals that I outlined of greater independence from foreign oil, huge investment in new technology, millions of new jobs, stopping the global warming problem. If we pass the health care bill, if we pass consumer protection legislation, we will have done far more in this extended year than in any year that I've seen in the period of time I've been in Congress. Well, it's my great pleasure to be with you and to go over in this outline form what has been a very exciting year for me personally, in my new capacity as chairman of the committee, and in a time that we will look back, even though we're all frustrated all the time this year, but we will look back as a great historical period of time. Thank you very much.